Hi, I'm Don Havre with a real estate firm in the Tri-Cities in the state of Washington. It's always our goal to ensure that people that are involved in both the home selling and the home buying processes are well educated. In that endeavor, we have developed a video series dealing with home inspections and home inspection processes and procedures. Now, our first video that we produced dealt with business practices of home inspectors within the state of Washington. The second video was the first portion of home inspection procedures, and during that particular video we discussed what a home inspector should be evaluating as far as the structure, the exterior, roof, plumbing, and electrical systems. In the second part of this particular video, we'll discuss heating systems, air conditioning systems, interiors, insulation and ventilation, fireplaces, site, and garages. Now, I plan to produce a final video, and in that video I'll have an interview with a home inspector. I really have two goals during this interview. One is I want to ask the home inspector, are there any common deficiencies that seem to reoccur within the Tri-City area? Secondly, I want to ask the home inspector, is there any specific background that we should be looking for from the standpoint when selecting a home inspector? I realize everyone is licensed, but I have found that some home inspectors seem to be more technically competent than others. Now, continuing on with our home inspection process itself and dealing with heating systems, the inspection of the heating system includes the fuel source, heating equipment, heating distribution, operating controls, flue pipes, chimneys, and venting and auxiliary heating units. Now, the inspector is required to describe the type of fuel, heating equipment, heating distribution systems, actually operate the system using normal readily accessible control device, open readily accessible access panels or covers provided by the manufacturer or installer if readily detachable. Now, the inspector should inspect the condition of normal operated controls and components of the system, the condition and operation of furnaces, boilers, heat pumps, electrical central heating units and distribution systems, and visible flue pipes and related components to ensure functionality. Now, the inspector will not ignite pilot lights or operate heating devices or systems that do not respond to normal controls or have been shut down. Now, as you might suspect, that if a component does not operate under normal conditions, that becomes an item that will be included in the inspection report, and in most cases there'll be a recommendation that an HVAC person come back in and evaluate the system itself. Now, as far as air conditioning systems, the inspection of air conditioning systems includes the cooling equipment, cooling distribution equipment, and the operating controls. The inspector will describe the central air conditioning system and energy sources, operate the system using normal control devices, and measure and record temperature differences, and open readily accessible access panels or covers provided by the manufacturer or installer. Inspect the condition of controls and operative components of the complete system, conditions permitting. Now, the inspector will not activate cooling systems that have been shut down. And I see this frequently during frigid months in the Tri-City area where we're dealing with heat pump systems specifically. Inspectors will not activate that air conditioning side of a heat pump in fear that it may damage the unit itself. Now, when we move on to home inspections in the interior, inspection includes the walls, the ceilings, the floors, the windows, doors, steps, stairways, balconies, and railings. Now, the inspector will verify that steps, handrails, guardrails, stairways, and landings are installed wherever necessary, and report when they are missing or in need of repair, and report when balusters or rails spacing exceeds 4 inches. Now, when you think about this, under the old code, which is actually 6 inches, it was possible for a child to place his or her head through the railing system itself and actually get into a very dangerous situation. And I believe it was in the 80s that code was changed to 4-inch railings. Now, the inspector will inspect the overall condition of cabinets and countertops, caulking and grout at kitchen and bathroom counters, and the interior walls, ceilings, and floors for indications of concealed structural deficiencies, water infiltration, or major damage. The condition and operation of representative number of windows and doors. The inspector is not required to report on cosmetic conditions related to conditions of interior components, or verify whether all walls, floors, ceilings, doorways, cabinets, window openings are square, straight, and level or plumb. When an inspector looks at the insulation and ventilation systems, the inspection of these systems includes the type and condition of the insulation and ventilation in viewable, unfinished attics and subgrade areas, as well as the installed mechanical ventilation systems. The inspector will inspect the insulation, ventilation, and installed mechanical systems in viewable and accessible attics and unfinished subfloor areas. Describe the type of insulation in viewable and accessible unconditioned areas. Report missing or inadequate vapor barriers and subfloor crawl spaces with earth floors. Report the absence of insulation at the interface between conditioned and unconditioned spaces where visible. Report the absence of insulation on heating system ductwork and supply plumbing in unconditioned spaces. And I see this in new construction every once in a while, where we'll find venting that has not been totally encased with insulation. Now, the inspector is not required to determine the presence, extent, and type of insulation and vapor barriers concealed in interior type of walls. Now, when we deal with fireplaces and stoves, the inspector will describe the fireplaces and stoves, inspect dampers, fireplaces, and hearths, and describe any deficiencies of these systems or components. The inspector is not required to inspect flues or verify the presence of flue liners beyond what can safely and readily be seen from the roof or the firebox of a stove or fireplace. Inspector is not required to ignite fires in a fireplace or stove, or determine the adequacy of the draft, perform any chimney smoke test, inspect any solid fuel device being operated at the time of the inspection. The site is always an area of concern, and it is required to be inspected within the state of Washington. The inspection of the site includes the building perimeter, land grade, water drainage directly adjacent to the foundation, trees and vegetation that adversely affect the structure, walks, grade steps, driveway, patios, and retaining walls contiguous with the structure. The inspector will describe the materials used for driveways, walkways, patios, and other flat work around the home. Inspect for serviceability of the driveway steps, walkways, patios, flat work, and retaining walls continuous with the structure, and look for proper grading and determine drainage slope and any vegetation in close proximity to the home. I think as a general rule, what I've observed is that any time that vegetation is actually touching the structure itself, most inspectors are going to ask that that vegetation be cut back. Now, the inspector is not required to inspect fences, privacy walls, or retaining walls that are not contiguous with the structure, or report the condition of soil, trees, shrubs, or vegetation unless they adversely affect the structure itself. Garages and carports. The inspection of attached garages and carports includes their framing, siding, roof, doors, windows, and installed electrical mechanical systems pertaining to the operation of the home. The inspector will inspect the condition and functionality of the overhead garage doors and associated hardware, test the function of the garage door openers, their automatic reverse systems, and secondary entrapment devices. Inspect the condition and installation of any pedestrian doors, inspect fire separation between the house and the garage when applicable, and report as a fire hazard the presence of any ignition sources, gas and electrical water heaters, electrical receptacles, electronic air cleaners, motors of installed appliances, etc., that is within 18 inches of the garage floor, and of course describe any deficiencies of these systems. The inspector is not required to determine whether or not a solid core pedestrian door that is not labeled as fire rated, or verify the functionality of garage door opener remote controls, move vehicles, or personal property. I frequently find that an inspector will go in to inspect a home and find that they cannot get access to specific areas because there's personal property blocking the area, which will cause the inspector to come back a second time, and possibly there'll be an additional inspection fee associated with that. Well, that wraps up the policies and procedures, And as I indicated previously, the next video dealing with this particular series will be an interview of a home inspector. Well, once again, I'm Don Havre of the real estate firm in the Tri-Cities in the state of Washington. If you're thinking about buying or selling real estate in the Tri-Cities, that includes Richland, Kennewick, Pasco, and the West Richland area, give us a call. My daughter Michelle and I would be more than happy to assist you.